Good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak here today. My boys and I have been visiting this church the last few weeks, and you have made us feel so very welcome. In fact, like good UUs, you all have made us feel welcome despite knowing very little about me. So I'll share a secret with you. The fact that I am up here speaking to all of you, particularly about a personal topic, is almost preposterous. I've done my share of public speaking, but hardly ever without making myself nearly sick with anxiety. I have led large business meetings and workshops, but unlike today, I have shared very little of my personal self with an audience. I, like many of us, have avoided vulnerability at all costs. Many of you have heard this. Apparently, public speaking is most people's greatest fear. Not spiders, not airplanes, not monsters, cockroaches, snakes, sharks, or bullies, but speaking in front of other humans. So let me ask all of you to participate for just a second. I promise I won't ask you to speak. By a show of hands, how many of you are afraid of speaking in front of a group? So that kind of confirms it. We apparently fear public speaking more than we fear death. That means to the average person, as Jerry Seinfeld humorously noted, if you have to be at a funeral, you would rather be in the casket than giving a eulogy. Why? Why is this? What exactly are we afraid of? According to Psychology Today, a publication that might bore a lot of you to tears, but which fascinates me, the answer lies in our ancient history. As early humans, we were likely hunted by larger predators. Humans were not the largest, fastest, or fiercest animal, not by a long shot. Our early human ancestors survived by their ability to collaborate or work together. A common and useful defense was to stay together in groups. So it stands to reason that by standing out on our own or speaking in public, we risk judgment, rejection, and humiliation. And at a psychological level, our fear of being judged and consequently rejected and left to defend ourselves all on our own directly threatens our ability to survive. But perhaps we wouldn't fear judgment quite so much if at some point in our lives we hadn't experienced shame. Just about every one of us at some point has been judged by someone else, resulting in our feeling ashamed. Shame. There's something wrong with me. According to Brene Brown, a researcher on this topic, it is almost impossible in our culture, in our society, to not feel like there's something wrong with us. So it's only fair that I issue a warning at this point. Apparently, even just the word shame brings about feelings of discomfort and shame in us, just hearing the word. So bear with me just for a few minutes and take some small comfort in the fact that if you are uncomfortable, you are completely normal. In fact, apparently the only people who don't experience shame are sociopaths. So in this case, take comfort in the discomfort. So I'd like to throw out a couple of definitions, specifically about shame and guilt, and share with you how these two emotions are actually different. Guilt is the feeling that I did something wrong. Shame is the feeling that I am something wrong. Guilt focuses on behavior. Shame focuses on self. The typical outcome of guilt is that we change our behavior. The outcome of shame is self-condemnation. In other words, we beat ourselves up. Bad. Guilt usually has a positive outcome, not shame. Shame results in blame, judgment, addiction, perfectionism, and disconnection. According to Brach, a leading Western teacher of Buddhist meditation, emotional healing, and spiritual awakening, the deepest suffering that we experience in this culture is feeling that something is wrong with me. I'm not enough. I'm flawed. Our deepest suffering in our culture is feeling ashamed. So some of you may be wondering at this point, who is this Caroline Fritz, and why on earth is she talking with us about shame? So let me share with you all a little bit about myself. No, not a psychotherapist, nor am I a social worker. I do have a college degree, but my expertise on this subject comes from a much more expensive education called personal experience. Having grown up Catholic, I found out when I was, maybe 2 years old, that I was a sinner, which is ironic considering how absolutely perfect I was. I still remember going to my celebrated first confession, where I had to walk into a tiny closet-like room and confess to a complete stranger behind a curtain all of my sins. At 7, I had no sins to confess, so I made up a story about taking my friend's bike. Then I remember feeling horribly ashamed about lying to a priest. I lied to a priest. What was wrong with me? I won't bore you with all of the other shaming stories of my childhood, but some of them are probably not too different from your own. I was surrounded by many people who had their own shame stories. Perfectionism, judgment, condemnation. None of us ever seemed to measure up. Thank goodness for good therapy. So according to Brene Brown, for the vast majority of us, our shame stories began in our childhood. Shame has traditionally been a very popular tool for parenting. Let me ask all of you, who remembers having this remark directed at you? What is the matter with you? Or how about this one? You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Without dwelling on shame for too long, I want to share a final definition of shame with you from Brene Brown's book, I Thought It Was Just Me. Shame is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing we are flawed and therefore unworthy of acceptance and belonging. According to Brown, shame is the gremlin who says, you're not good enough. You never finished that MBA. Your wife left you. I know your dad wasn't really in Luxembourg. He was in a state pen. I know about those things that happened to you growing up. I know you don't think you're pretty enough, or smart enough, or talented enough, or powerful enough. I know your dad never paid attention even when you made CFO. Shame is that thing. Brown goes on to say that shame is highly, highly correlated with addiction, depression, eating disorders, violence, aggression, bullying, suicide. And get this, guilt, it's actually inversely correlated with all those things. Okay, so blah, 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 shame, blah, blah, depression, addiction. Where am I going with all of this? So here's the deal. When I first started attending the Greenville UU 2.5 years ago, I was so moved by our 7 principles. I thought, this is it. This is what it's all about. But here's the problem. Sometimes I feel like we can't get past our first 2 principles. Using the language that we teach our children. 1, each person is important. And 2, be fair and kind in all you do. Really? So is each person really important and I need to be fair and kind to them, each and every person? Well, they are important so long as they don't go to that kind of church. So long as they aren't racist or homophobic. So long as they don't drive slow in the far left lane on the highway or fail to use their turn signal. So long as they don't shop at that store, so long as they aren't from that political party or watch that TV news show, so long as they aren't different from us. What? That doesn't add up. That isn't what I thought being a Unitarian Universalist was about. I thought we were different from all the haters. But I've learned that haters, and I use that term with the deepest affection, they come in all shapes and sizes, disguised as conservatives and liberals, Christians and atheists. Last year, I told my therapist, I am sick of judging people. I just want to accept people. I aspire to be one of those rare, compassionate beings that truly loves everyone. We've all learned from some of the great teachers of love, like Martin Luther King and Mother Teresa. But another teacher that comes to my mind is the Jew that many of us learned about in the New Testament, the one called the One. Don't we all aspire at least a little bit to advocate for all beings like Jesus, who said, "Judge not, lest ye be judged"? Anyway, last year when I started researching judgment, what I found out about was shame. So there's the connection. Shame, judgment. Are we so busy feeling that deep down something is wrong with us, we mask our shame with perfection? As perfectionists, we hold ourselves to ridiculous ideals, and while we beat ourselves up for not meeting our ideals, we beat up everyone else around us to make us feel better. And I know that's pretty harsh, but just look at the world we live in. The #1 channel on TV peddles hate and blame, and people soak it up. And the people that don't peddle a different flavor of hate and blame towards the people that do. So how do we get out of this vicious cycle? And how can we break this cycle so that this beautiful generation of children we are raising truly believes in their hearts that each person, including themselves, is important? I don't know if I've mentioned that along with being a process improvement engineer, I don't think I even mentioned I was a process improvement engineer. Well, I am, and I'm also the queen of self-help. By the way, these are both natural fits for us perfectionists. In all of the reading and researching I've done, I found a few great teachers and some strategies that seem to make the most sense to get us off of this runaway shame and judgment train. The first strategy is this: forgive yourself. You know, it's funny, we hear a lot about how healthy forgiveness is, but rarely is that forgiveness directed at ourselves. I think Maya Angelou put it beautifully and simply when she said, "I did the best I knew at the time. When I knew better, I did better." That quote has saved me more times than I can count. Forgive yourself. Be gentle with yourself. You are doing the best you can. It's okay to make mistakes. That's how we learn. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Finish each day and be done with it. You have done what you could. Some blunders and absurdities no doubt crept in. Forget them as soon as you can. Tomorrow is a new day. You shall begin it serenely and with too high a spirit to be encumbered with your old nonsense." The second strategy, along with forgiving yourself, accept yourself and remind yourself every day that you are okay. You are enough. You are perfect just the way you are. Does anyone here practice mantras? I really strongly encourage this practice. It's so powerful. I encourage you to write down 5 affirmations and read them every day. The one I taught my kids a few months ago goes like this: I am perfect just the way I am. I can make mistakes. They help me learn and grow. Several years, or possibly decades ago, I heard a Bissell commercial with a tagline I loved: "Life's messy, clean it up." Well, us perfectionists sure do like to clean things up. By the way, if you've ever been to my house, This is how you know I'm a recovering perfectionist. I have come to accept that life is messy, and I'm no longer obsessed with cleaning it up. So that's the third strategy. Life is messy. Accept that. We are animals. We are messy. We're doing the best we can. I want to offer proof of how valuable acceptance is. For those of you who are afraid to speak in public, next time you are faced with this arduous task and you feel the butterflies and heart palpitations and tightness in your throat, take a deep breath and say to yourself, yes, this too. I am human. This is how we feel. It's okay to feel this. It's what makes me human. I promise you, if you can accept those feelings instead of fighting them, you will begin to feel relief. It's our anxiety about our anxiety and our trying to overcome it instead of accepting it that makes us want to curl up in the fetal position and die. I'm living, breathing, and speaking proof that acceptance truly works. The last strategy, practice empathy. Practice it with yourself first, then practice it with others. When I started understanding the connection between shame and judgment, I had a huge epiphany about Christianity. Not only Catholics, but most forms of Christianity have the same core belief, and that is, we are all sinners. Christians are taught from birth. You are a sinner. There is something wrong with you. And Jesus had to up and die on that cross to save you from your sins. And the cross itself, the ever-present reminder that you are a sinner. When you think of it this way, maybe it's easier to understand why there has been so much judgment in religion. They did the best they knew at the time. When they knew better, they did better. The world is changing. People are becoming more accepting and open of diversity. Slowly but surely, I do believe we are all waking up. A big selling point for practicing empathy and kindness is that research shows that people who do so are actually happier. Being kind makes us happier. So getting back to empathy, maybe you could try something that I have started practicing. Whenever I'm in a situation that in the past I may have said, well, that was rude. Now I actually say, well, that was human. Sometimes when I've come to almost a complete stop behind a car that is turning without using the communication systems provided to them for the occasion, instead of muttering something not nice, I might repeat one of my new mantras, empathy, empathy, empathy. And it reminds me, we are human. We forget sometimes to use our turn signals. Clarence Darrow said, when we fully understand the brevity of life, its fleeting joys and unavoidable pains, when we accept the fact that all men and women are approaching an inevitable doom, the consciousness of it should make us more kindly and considerate of each other. This feeling should make men and women use their best efforts to help their fellow travelers on the road, to make the path brighter and easier as we journey on. It should bring a closer kinship, a better understanding, and a deeper sympathy for the wayfarers who must live a common life and die a common death. So I want to thank you again for allowing me this opportunity to share one of the most valuable lessons that I've learned about life. And I'd like to end on this note, not my own words, but of a wonderful author, Jeff Brown, who writes, shame, shame, go away, come again no other day. There's so much bloody shame on this planet, so many ways our faith in ourselves and recognition of our value has been undermined. This is the place to work as a collective, to restore our sense of our own worth, to learn how to validate others, to co-create a celebratory way of being that recognizes the fact that we are all here because we are welcome here. If we are here, we are truly welcome here, no matter what anyone says to the contrary. Thank you.